Okay, so I promised to show these charts. I guess it wasn't a promise, more just like something I said I'd do. But anything I say I do is a promise to me. So here we are. And this is a chart of how the body actually needs to be operated to achieve maximum efficiency for healing any genetic disorder or just for the proper consumption of any food and just maintenance overall, just to maintain the functional physiology. Is that in the middle you have the earth acid body DNA, because DNA is deoxyribonucleic acid. So that's the building for the building blocks for the body, your DNA and your RNA. And then you usually will start off here with air, combustion, and circulation. However, in irony, we may sometimes start off here, which is what the consumption part is about. and it's magnetism, electricity, activation, formulation, and combustion. And that's because sometimes, depending on the functionality of the physiology and what it requires, you may actually need to eat food uh, in the morning, like breakfast and stuff like that. And so that would get into starting here instead. So it's usually relative to where you are in the spectrum as it applies to yourself and your life. However, normally we will want to start there. Rarely will we ever start here, which is fire absorption activation acid, which is related to the activity phase in the process there. And oftentimes we may start here at water, which is hydration, water circulation absorption. So starting here at air is we initiate breath work to prepare for consumption, as you can see up there written down. And it's air, combustion, circulation. So when you breathe properly, you oxygenate the blood. I read all of that, and so I explained it all. When you breathe properly, you oxygenate the blood. That leads to a combustion, which leads to a level of circulation in the body. And if you do breathing techniques like Tai Chi's and stuff like that, or Qigong, uh, just even just breathing, and then you just push your hands down like people would calm themselves down in that way. That wasn't just something that was just for calming down. That's actually useful even if you're already in a state of what you would consider to be calm or not agitated. And so after doing that, and I put this double arrow here, is because sometimes we need a little water before breath work. And that's why sometimes magnetism, electricity, activation, formulation, combustion, because in order to move into this phase right here, oftentimes we may need either this or a combination of these, because many people actually have this kind of problem where if they inhale too much oxygen, then they end up lightheaded and they can't function. So it's important to know where you're at within that spectrum. And if you know you're one of those people who might just end up lightheaded and fierce, you can try water. You could just use water or the tea, because tea kind of falls into that category. When I say water, I should put the word liquid, is what I should have said. But water is the reason I put that there, is because it's for specifically the hydration. So that you're moving from there, the air circulation, air combustion circulation, to the water, create a damp environment to absorb nutrients. So we talked about that. That's making sure that you got like a swamp in there, not like it's a it's like you're not just moist, like you gotta, it's really, you're going to absorb nutrition when you're not going to have problems having that absorption, and it enhances to that circulation as well. And then moving into that fire absorption activation acid aspect, and that's that generate friction to break down, activate nutrients. So we know that, like I said, explained in previous videos, that's about when that's your activity. So sometimes people can't actually physiologically really get around, and so I would say do mental activities, a lot of mental activities. So that's mind games, board games and stuff like that. Just make sure you do things that really stimulate the awareness, and obviously drink teas and stuff like that, like I talked about. And if you can't drink teas, then you really get your mental going. And so after moving from that fire absorption activation acid, then you move over here, magnetism, electricity, activation, formulation, combustion. And that's to eat the proper amounts of vitamins and minerals to build the body. The reason I put magnetism and electricity and not consumption is because what you're consuming is magnetism and electricity. That's what it is. So any foods that you consume will have some form of a calculative variable of magnetic and electrical functionality. Vegetables have more of a magnetic functionality than fruits do. Fruits have more of an electric functionality than vegetables do. This is that thing, that's the way that it works. And when you eat whatever you eat, it activates the DNA more. So when you do the activity, that stimulates the physiology to activate the DNA. The DNA activates through activity. This has been, scientific evidence has proven that even the brain just becomes more acute and aware through activity, and everything is DNA in your body, all cells DNA. So they must be activating, obviously, which means that, or maybe not obviously, I don't want to sound disrespectful or condescending. So when your activity activates your DNA, and then here, right? And this is also just in case after food, you know what I'm saying? So during the daytime, at the day after you've had a meal, and the next day, you know what I'm saying? If you didn't eat the breakfast or you did eat the breakfast, all of these things still apply, which means that you air the combustion circulation because you breathe in oxygen. It helps to combust, and it also helps to combust the food and break it down easier, and then circulate it. And water, sometimes both actually, because you interchanging here. So you would do air and water if you already hit this phase, air and water, and then you go back through this cycle of activity, which is the fire absorption, activation, and because it hikes up the acid in the physiology, right? And then it goes to that again later in the day. You have your food again. It working that way. So that's that part. So now we're flipping. Right. So here we have the breakfast fruits, and the reason of the word is highest quality is this. That's the highest quality of the fruit. Okay. So oranges, the highest quality of oranges is the vitamin C and the potassium that oranges give you. Another thing about oranges is they're acidic. So to eat them, like I said in the previous videos, before or after the oranges, before or after a meal is very important in the digestion of your food, because your stomach utilizes acid to pre-digest, right? So it to begin the digestive phase and to end the digest, it needs acid. So that's beautiful. Anything high in vitamin C is going to have ascorbic acid. Vitamin C is ascorbic acid. So then we're moving on to apples, and apples are highly. You see, some of these things are undervalued, and so it's like, oh yeah, I know about apples. It's like, yeah, but unless you really went through the process of actually, I do apologize. It is the daytime, so if there's a lots of noise from the larger vehicles, I apologize. If you actually went through the process of detoxifying your body, you'll understand that apples are one of the only fruits that may make you, other than grapes and plums, immediately go to the restroom. Immediately. They may make you immediately go to the restroom, regardless of a level of activity or anything. That's how powerful they are. And the most powerful things that I noted here were the fiber, resveratrol, pectin, and the rutin. Apples are actually really high on rutin, so that's important. And then moving down here, we have the watermelon, honeydew, and cantaloupe. These are highly important because your adrenal glands, and so I spoke about that in the previous video. So your adrenal glands need that citrulline. You know what I'm saying? So you have to be paying attention to the fact that how much citrulline do you get, and then they are all loaded in vitamin C, vitamin B6, cantaloupe. I mean, not cantaloupe, but honeydew actually is also extremely high in vitamin B5, and so that's important to note. I didn't put that down here, but that's also important to note. I learned that about a year ago, last year, when I was doing researching on how to get my B5 and all of those things, and make sure that my physio, because I was doing a lot of extraneous exercise, and they're really high in potassium, watermelon, all extremely high in potassium, magnesium. They all have magnesium. They're useful for that, so that's very great. And then lycopene is only really in the watermelon, and maybe a little bit in cantaloupe because of the coloring is orange, but watermelon, because that deep red color, it has plenty of lycopene in there, so it's really, really useful for the eye coloring and the protection of the eyes, making sure that your eye health stays good. So we have grapes here, and the grapes are like my powerhouse team. Like Grapes are amazing. It's like, people see them as like in the movies, like the kings or the queens, whoever is like having the most money. A piece of my hair. Having the most money is just devouring grapes. And so there's resveratrol, vitamin C, potassium, fiber, and then we have quercetin. Quercetin is insanely important for the a healthy lung. Healthy lungs need quercetin. They need quercetin. It's highly nutritious, highly valuable for your body. And resveratrols are extremely important for a healthy heart. So you can also get those from pistachios, which I love so much. And then we're moving on to, and grapes, like I said, are also one of those that actually will make you use the restroom almost immediately, which is awesome. So if you have any experience in constipation, then actually eating grapes, I don't know about grape juice, but eating actual grapes, then a nice like maybe like 5 handfuls of grapes may help deal with that quite immediately. And if not, then drinking water afterwards and doing a little side to side, some kind of like CrossFit type of exercise or sit-ups will definitely take you into the ladies or the men's room. So then we got plums. Plums, extremely high in fiber, vitamin K, boron, potassium, and copper. Now, boron, I'm not that actual affiliated with. I haven't learned a lot about boron because I haven't had exactly that much time to specifically study every nutrient itself. But I am aware that boron is absolutely necessary for the body, and if you get low on boron, you can kind of have some kind of cellular malfunctions. Because every single time I have problems with the physiology and I don't really know what's going on, I tend to end up with something like plums or some food that has boron in it. And I'll look up more foods with boron specifically. As a matter of fact, I might just go ahead and do a whole like a little research thing about that, because I've always been wanting to get into each individual nutrient itself as well. But I've been more induced into the overall like concept of what it is that functions the best, because certain foods don't even actually help the body at certain times. Like bananas are very useful for me now, but back at a certain point in time, I wouldn't eat bananas because they're too starchy, they're too sugary. And so they cause too much mucus to form in the throat. If you really want to remove all of the mucus from the body, bananas are not your best friend. And so that's the same thing with a lot of things. Like at one point, I wouldn't eat fruits at all. But anyways, so here we go, avocados. And avocados are like they're a superfood, super duper powerhouse. So they have lutein and zeaxanthin, which are both good for the eye health, and they're also good for the liver health. So that's to be known as well. They're good for the liver health. They have lots of fiber, super fiber rich, omegas 3 and 6, and omegas 3 and 6. If you get enough of those, that actually in your body can actually, with possibly a little activity as well, create omega 9, and omega 9 for the brain is absolutely essential in heightening the brain function. They're also high in chlorophyll. As you can tell by the green on the inside of the avocado, has plenty of chlorophyll, but most of the chlorophyll is actually inside of the skin of the avocado, so that's to be noted. But yeah, avocados are insanely powerful and insanely useful. I didn't put potassium on there, but avocados are actually higher in potassium than bananas, much higher in potassium than bananas. So that's to be known. They have about double as much potassium as bananas do. And so moving on to bananas, they have carbohydrates, vitamin C, vitamin B6, folate, manganese, and potassium. Bananas are your fasting powerhouse food because they are so high in carbohydrates, and so are avocados because they are extremely high in omega 3 and 6. They're extremely high in essential fatty acids. So these two together make it very, very easy to fast. And so do apples, because apples have this kind of mechanism where when they go into the body, they seem to calm the heart. And a lot of people who fast tend to fast with apples. They tend to go on apple fast, or like you just eat massive amounts of apples. I've done it, and I've heard other people talk about it.